Chapter 16. The Assault on Fallen Spire. Under the shroud of the Whisperwood's perpetual twilight, Otnam addressed the hushed ranks, his voice a low, resonant murmur that carried through the surrounding trees. He outlined the plan. A swift, coordinated strike to seize the fallen spire, overwhelming the blood-tied garrison before they could properly organize a defense. "Friend will be distinguished from foe by this," he stated, producing a length of blue cloth. "A ribbon tied to your right arm. See to it that every soul wears one." Orders were passed down the line, and soon, a blue ribbon adorned the right arm of every soldier, a silent pact of recognition in the looming darkness. The army then spread out, a wave of determined shadows, encircling the ancient ruins. Each unit moved with practiced stealth, finding positions amidst the crumbling stones and overgrown thickets. The only sounds were the rustle of leaves, the distant calls of nocturnal birds, and the subtle clink of steel as weapons were readied. Otnam, positioned near the front, signaled for a brief pause. He motioned for his personal guard, led by Sergeant Marcus Ironheart, to hold their ground while he crept closer to the spire's perimeter. From the shadows, he could hear the low murmur of voices. "I'm telling you, Seth, I heard something," a gruff voice complained. "Sounded like armor clinking." "You're jumping at shadows, Karn," another voice, sharper and more authoritative, replied. This was likely Lieutenant Vexa, the officer in charge of this watch. "It's just the wind in the trees. Or maybe a stray boar. Keep your eyes peeled, but stop whining. The tide doesn't pay us to be skittish." "Easy for you to say, Lieutenant," a third voice, younger and more anxious, chimed in. "I don't like this forest. Feels like it's watching us." "Shut it, Salazar," Vexa snapped. "Just walk your patrol route. And Karn, stop leaning on your halberd like it's a crutch." Otnam smiled grimly in the darkness. The blood-tied guards were complacent, their discipline lax. He retreated silently to his position and signaled the attack. When every position was secured, Otnam drew an arrow, knocked it to his bow, and with a whispered incantation, set its tip ablaze. The flaming arrow soared, its fiery trail a beacon against the oppressive gloom of the Whisperwood night. Below, the blood-tied guards at the fallen spire looked up, their faces momentarily illuminated by the sudden light. "What in the blazes is that?" Karn yelled, pointing at the sky. "To arms!" Lieutenant Vexa roared, drawing his sword. "We're under attack." But it was too late. The first shouts of Otnam's attacking force erupted from the shadows, shattering the forest silence. The battle for the fallen spire had begun. Otnam plunged into the fray, his dark vision piercing the gloom. He sought out the enemy leader, Lieutenant Vexa, but the chaos of the initial clash obscured his target. Instead, he found himself face to face with Karn, the gruff guard he had heard earlier. With a surge of arcane power, Otnam unleashed an eldritch blast, a beam of crackling, blackish-purple energy streaking from his outstretched hand. It struck Karn square in the chest, sending him flying backward, his halberd clattering to the ground. A surge of dark, invigorating energy washed over Otnam as the blessing of his patron replenished his wounds. Salazar, the younger guard, seeing his comrade fall, lunged forward with a guttural cry, aiming a desperate strike with her short sword. Otnam's armored shoulder deflected the blow with a dull clang. He deftly sidestepped her clumsy swing, the blade whistling harmlessly past his head. He focused his will, unleashing another eldritch blast at the wounded Salazar, staggering her further. Around him, the battle raged. General Meriden Webb led a wedge of heavily armored Amaranthan soldiers, their disciplined strikes cutting through the disorganized blood-tied defenders. Captain Luna Nightsong and her Stoneheart dwarfs fought with ferocious intensity, their axes cleaving through armor and bone. The blue ribbons on their arms flashed in the dim light, a stark contrast to the crimson tabards of their enemies. Determined to eliminate the immediate threats, Otnam continued to focus his eldritch blasts. Salazar, already severely wounded, finally succumbed to the relentless arcane assault, collapsing lifelessly to the ground. Otnam then turned his attention to a new threat. Lieutenant Vexa had finally emerged from the chaos, his sword raised high, rallying his remaining troops. "Hold the line," Vexa bellowed, his voice cutting through the din of battle. "For the tide." Otnam charged towards the lieutenant, drawing his long sword. The steel glinted faintly in the dim light as he delivered a heavy blow that embedded itself deeply into Vexa's armor. The lieutenant cried out, staggering back, barely clinging to consciousness. With a final, decisive thrust, Otnam's long sword cleaved into Lieutenant Vexa, ending his resistance. With their leader fallen, the remaining blood-tide guards broke and fled, only to be cut down by the advancing Amaranthan and Stoneheart forces. The silence that now hung over the ancient elven ruins was a testament to their success. The territory was reclaimed, and the blood tide's foothold shattered, securing the spire and new intelligence. With the immediate threat neutralized, the sounds of battle quickly gave way to the organized bustle of occupation. General Meriden Webb and Captain Luna Nightsong efficiently directed their forces to establish a fortified position amidst the crumbling stones of the fallen spire. Makeshift barricades were erected, watchtowers were manned, and the strategic elevation of the ruins was now turned to their advantage. While the defenses were being secured, squads were dispatched to scour the former blood-tide garrison. They quickly unearthed a modest bounty. Several coin purses, their contents quickly consolidated and accounted for, and a small crate containing half a dozen serviceable healing potions. 3 of these potent elixirs were brought to Otnam, a direct benefit of the swift victory. More importantly, amidst a pile of discarded supplies, a crudely drawn map was discovered, its lines betraying recent blood-tide logging operations deeper within the Whisperwood. The new intelligence was immediately relayed to General Meriden Webb, offering a clearer picture of the enemy's resource network. Otnam approached General Meriden Webb, who was poring over the newly acquired map under the flickering light of a brazier, his stern features illuminated by the shifting glow. "General," Otnam began, "do these crude maps offer any insight into the blood-tide's troop numbers in those logging operations?" Meriden Webb adjusted his spectacles, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Not precise figures, Your Highness," he replied, tapping a rough sketch of a camp with a gloved finger. "But they confirm a significant presence. These aren't just logging crews. The fortifications drawn suggest they have garrisons to protect their operations. We can infer that each major logging site would house at least a company, perhaps more, especially at Oakhaven. It solidifies our understanding of their resource defense strategy." He then straightened, his gaze sweeping the newly fortified ruins. "As for the foresters, my scouts were dispatched just before our assault. The Whisperwood is vast, and discretion was paramount. It will take some time for them to make contact and return. We should expect to hear something within the next day or 2, assuming they find someone willing and able to guide us or carry a message." "Thoughts, General, on how to proceed?" Otnam inquired. General Meriden Webb stroked his beard, his eyes fixed on the crude map. "Now that the spire is secured, Your Highness, we have a vital foothold. My immediate recommendation is to consolidate our position here. Establish solid defenses, organize patrols, and give the men a brief period to rest and resupply. We've pushed hard, and a fresh force is a potent one." He then traced a path on the map. "Once we're well rested, we assess these logging operations. This map indicates several of them, but they are still somewhat vague. I'd favor sending out small, elite reconnaissance teams to get a clearer picture of their exact strength and dispositions. Simultaneously, we could begin planning a swift surgical strike against the closest or most vulnerable of these camps. Cut off their timber supply, and we sever a critical artery to their war machine. It would be a strong follow-up to our success here at the Fallen Spire." "What are Oakhaven's defenses like?" Otnam asked. "And what is the distance between those camps and Oakhaven, and those camps to each other?" General Meriden Webb gestured to the map, tapping a central point marked Oakhaven. "Oakhaven, Your Highness, is less a fortress and more a fortified town. The blood tide has built a stout palisade around it, reinforced with watchtowers at regular intervals. They've also established a small, permanent garrison within, likely a company of well-trained soldiers, along with local militia pressed into service. It's designed to repel raids, not withstand a full siege, but it would still be a bloody affair to take head-on. He then pointed to the rough circles indicating the logging camps. As for the distances, the map is not precise, but it suggests the main camps are roughly a day's march from Oak Haven, perhaps 15 to 20 miles through the forest, depending on the terrain. They form a loose semicircle to the west and north of the town, feeding timber down the river or via crude roads back to Oak Haven for processing and transport. Between the camps themselves, the distances vary. Some are mere hours apart, others a half-day's trek. They are designed to be somewhat self-sufficient, but close enough to support each other if attacked by smaller raiding parties. That leaves us with options, Otnam mused. Oak Haven's militia, how loyal do you think they are? The men will rest here the night and continue fortifying. General Meriden Webb stroked his chin thoughtfully. The militia, Your Highness, are likely not loyal to the blood tide in the same way their own hardened soldiers are. They are locals, foresters, and timbermen, whose lives have been upended. They would have been pressed into service, likely through a combination of coercion and promises of protection. Their loyalty would be to their homes, their families, and their livelihoods, not to the blood tide's banner. He paused, then added, given their circumstances, they are unlikely to fight with the same fervor as a dedicated fighting force. If presented with a clear path to safety, or a guarantee that their homes would be spared, their resistance might crumble quickly. They are an unknown quantity, but one I suspect could be turned, or at least minimized, with the right approach. He then nodded decisively. A wise decision, Your Highness. The men will rest here tonight, recover their strength, and continue to fortify our hold on the fallen spire. We will be ready for whatever the morrow brings. Seeking the forest's wisdom. Instead of resting, Otnam spent the remaining hours of the night moving silently through the forest surrounding the fallen spire, his enhanced vision cutting through the gloom. He traced faint tracks, almost invisible to the untrained eye, a broken twig here, an unusually placed stone there, signs of deliberate, careful passage by someone intimately familiar with these woods. Following a barely discernible trail away from the main logging paths, he eventually detected the faint, acrid scent of wood smoke, expertly masked but still present. Creeping closer, he found a small, hidden lean-to tucked beneath a massive, ancient cedar. A figure, wiry and cloaked in forest green leather, was hunched over a tiny, smokeless fire, sharpening a hunting knife. They were older, with a weathered face and eyes that constantly scanned their surroundings. They hadn't noticed Otnam yet, but their stillness suggested an acute awareness of their environment. This was a forester, indeed, one who knew the Whisperwood's secrets well enough to remain unseen by armies. Otnam approached, hands outstretched in front, showing he meant no harm. Mind if I sit by your fire a moment? He asked. The forester's head snapped up, eyes like polished obsidian fixing on Otnam with unnerving speed. The knife paused mid-stroke, its keen edge glinting in the faint firelight. For a tense moment, only the soft crackle of the tiny flame broke the silence. Otnam felt the weight of his assessment, then a slow, grudging nod. "I," a raspy voice replied, surprisingly deep for his slight frame. "Long as you ain't bringing trouble with you." He gestured vaguely to a spot opposite him with the point of his knife before returning to his sharpening. Otnam stepped into the meager light of the fire, the warmth a welcome contrast to the night's chill, and settled onto the damp earth, carefully keeping his movements slow and deliberate. The forester watched him from the corner of his eye, his movements precise as he worked the stone against the blade. "So you know this place well?" Otnam inquired. The forester grunted, not looking up from his blade. "Born and raised under these boughs, stranger. Know every root and stone from the sunken glades to the dragon's tooth. Why? Lost your way in the dark, have ye?" His voice was laced with a dry, almost mocking edge, yet his eyes flickered to Otnam for a brief, piercing moment before returning to his task. "Oh, my eyes were gifted to me. I can see better than an elf in the dark," Otnam replied. "But I am looking for someone and thought maybe you could help." The forester's hand, which had been methodically stroking the knife against the whetstone, froze. His head lifted fully, and his eyes, now fully illuminated by the tiny fire, bore into Otnam's. They weren't just dark. They seemed to drink in the shadows around them, assessing the truth of his claim with a startling intensity. A slow, almost imperceptible whistle escaped his lips. "Better than an elf, you say?" he murmured, a flicker of genuine surprise, perhaps even a grudging respect, crossing his weathered features. "That's a bold claim, stranger. But I've seen things in these woods that make me believe even bolder ones." He finally lowered his knife, sheathing it with a soft click. His posture remained guarded, but the hostility had softened into a potent curiosity. "So, you're not just warming your backside by my fire. You're looking for someone who, then, is so important that a man who sees better than an elf in the dark needs help finding them in my woods." His tone was still gruff, but there was an undeniable opening, an invitation to speak further. "I am not here in the woods alone, but I can sit by your fire with you alone," Otnam explained. "Hence, I cannot leave to find who I need as I have men to lead. But I do also remember a friend in need, if that makes sense." The forester listened, his gaze unblinking, taking in Otnam's words with a shrewd assessment. He picked up a twig and idly poked at the embers, sending a shower of sparks dancing into the dark. "I, a man with men to lead, but not so proud he can't sit by a forester's fire," he mused, the corner of his mouth twitching upwards almost imperceptibly. "And a friend in need, you say? This wood is full of folk in need these days, though not many remember a friend unless there's coin or steel involved." He finally looked at Otnam, a knowing glint in his eye. "So, you seek someone, and you want me to find them for you so you can go back to leading your men? And in return, perhaps, this friend in need might find a powerful ally." He let the unspoken implications hang in the night air, waiting for Otnam's confirmation, weighing the risks and rewards of such an unusual proposition. "Before you answer, know I seek an audience with the Druids," Otnam stated. "Not one where I meet them, but one where they come to me of their own volition." The forester's eyes widened almost imperceptibly, a flicker of genuine surprise crossing his face. He leaned back against the gnarled trunk of the cedar, studying Otnam with renewed intensity. "The Druids," he repeated, the name spoken with a reverence that hinted at a deep, personal connection. "And you want them to come to you? Not many folk have earned that privilege, stranger, especially not those who march with an army at their back." He took a long, thoughtful breath, his gaze drifting up to the dense canopy. "They're not easily swayed by promises of power or coin. They care for the wood and little else. But they also have no love for the Bloodtide's axes. If you seek to heal what's been wounded, and not just claim it for your own, then perhaps there's a path. But it would take more than just words from a stranger's tongue. It would take trust and proof of your intent. Tell them to ask the wood," Otnam urged. "I came here with clear intent, and the wood granted me passage and guided me with each step here to you. Ask the wood yourself. It will show you I have no evil intent here, only to see the blood tide dealt with." The forester's eyes, sharp and ancient, fixed on Otnam's. There was a challenge in his words, an invitation to a test of conviction. He closed his eyes, his breathing deepening almost imperceptibly, and for a long moment, he simply sat in profound stillness. The subtle sounds of the night seemed to amplify around him. The rustle of a distant creature, the soft sigh of the wind through the leaves. It was as if he truly was listening, not just with his ears, but with every fiber of his being, to the very pulse of the whisperwood. When his eyes finally opened, they held a different quality. The suspicion had not entirely vanished, but it was tempered with a grudging acknowledgement, a faint glimmer of something akin to curiosity. "The wood, it speaks in riddles sometimes," he murmured, his voice softer now. "But it confirms your claim. It acknowledges your unusual passage, and it senses the deep resentment you hold for the tide's desecration." He paused, a new weight to his words. But intent is a fickle thing, stranger. The path to ruin is often paved with good intentions. Yet, the wood does not scream of malice from you, only purpose. I will bear your message. Thank you, Otnam said. The druids will know how to find me again. The woods are their home after all. He handed the forester a potion of healing. This is an extra safeguard to your good fortune, not a payment. Otnam then rose. I will return to my men now. The forester's eyes flickered to the vial Otnam offered, then back to his face. He took it, his gnarled fingers closing around the glass, a faint, almost imperceptible nod of acceptance. A strange gift for a stranger, he rasped. But noted, the woods are indeed our home. They will know where to find you, if they choose to. With that, Otnam turned and melted back into the shadows, leaving the forester to his solitary vigil, a silent messenger now carrying the Archons' plea into the heart of the Whisperwood.